Welcome, everybody, to Old Women Who Write. I'm really pleased to have you here for another fascinating interview with a fascinating woman. Today, we're going to meet and talk with Linda Crabtree. You can see Linda on your screen. She came to my attention because she brought herself to my attention some months ago, and she wrote to me. She somehow heard about Old Women Who Write and wrote to me about herself and her book. The book title is CMT and Me. You'll find out what CMT is. CMT and Me, an intimate 75-year journey of love, loss, and refusal to surrender, right?
I don't
To a
know.
debilitating, you've forgotten it already? To a
Yeah,
debilitating disease.
too long. It's too long.
Right, okay. So although I'm really aware that while CMT doesn't define who Linda is, it is a big factor in your life, a huge factor in your life. So I really want to talk about that first. Like first of all, welcome, Linda. I'm glad to have you
Thank
here.
you. Good to be here.
Tell us about CMT. What is it?
CMT stands for Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease. It's named after three doctors who sort of discovered it, I guess you might say, back in, I think, 1884, 1885. And Charcot was that famous French doctor who discovered so many and named so many different diseases. But what it is, it's a genetic neuromuscular disease. So I was born with it. And we didn't know, but my mother had it. She didn't know she had it until I was diagnosed. So I think she was 87 when she found out she had it. Because she didn't think she did. She said, oh, well, I don't know where you got it. Well, Ma. But anyway, CMT, there's about 90 different types. And I have 2A, which is quite serious. It can affect a lot of different body parts, you might say. But what it's done for me is I no longer walk. I can't move anything from the knees down. I'm losing the use of my hands. I've had surgery on my vocal cords because I only have one working vocal cord. I had the other one pushed over towards it so they would vibrate and I'd have a voice. My diaphragm is weak, so I have to sort of pace myself as we speak because I can get winded.
Yes.
Which isn't good when you've got a mind full of things you want to get out, but your lungs won't let you. I'm well. I've been well most of my life. Disability and wellness they're two different things.
Yes.
I don't even get a cold. I lived for the last 6-8 years, but lately I've been having lightheadedness, and I don't know what it is, and it's very upsetting because it can be so bad. I feel like I'm going to pass out, and I'm waiting to see a cardiologist, but it's frightening because my father and my sister both died in their sleep at age 59 of heart. Yeah. Bam,
of course
they were
you're
gone.
worried.
So of course I worry.
Of course.
And the only thing about it is, if it is my heart, it's dragging on. So maybe it's good. I don't know.
Gotcha.
But I'm coping. And one thing that I'm doing to keep it together is I'm eating more often. I had a tendency to skip meals. I was busy doing what I wanted to do. I just forget to eat.
Right.
You think I'd be skinny, but I'm not. But anyway, I have to eat every 3 or 4 hours now.
Yeah.
And if I do that, I don't feel half as dizzy, which is great. It's giving me a little bit of hope. Other than that, my nose drips all the time. So you'll have to
That's
forgive
age,
me.
my dear. That's age.
I know,
I've
I
got
know.
news for you.
I know, but oh, it's annoying.
So embarrassing.
Talking to somebody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking to somebody, and all of a sudden you think, oh my God. So I keep a
Something's
Kleenex
running.
under my watch. And if I'm starting, I just, oh, excuse me. And
I'm
away I
very
go.
familiar with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it works.
Well, let
Seems
me
to me
ask
I
you,
remember my
would it
mother.
offend you, would it bother you or offend you if you could back up and show people the chair you're using and possibly show people your hands? Would
Oh,
that offend
sure.
you?
Sure. No, of course not.
Okay.
Believe me, I work 3 Facebook pages with people with my disease. I talk to them all the time. We share all the time.
Right.
There's about 800 people on that, and I'm on another one with 7,000. So believe me, we share.
Okay. Okay.
These are my
So,
hands. This one
right.
doesn't work hardly at all. But
Yes.
thank heaven I'm left-handed. This one I can
Uh-huh.
barely move the fingers a little bit.
Yes.
But it acts as a good sort of foil for this one when I want to pick something up. This one I can move the fingers a little bit,
Uh-huh.
but this is a good time to show you. I have
Lisa,
like a wrist strap.
Linda is an inventor, just for those who are watching. She has invented
Well,
this.
you have to be when you have things that nobody's got anything for.
Right.
So my wrist strap. So this brace, which is made out of some kind of flexible plastic,
Yeah.
stops my wrist from dropping, and it's terrific.
Yep.
And it's
Makes sense.
waterproof and it's everything proof, and you can just flip it on and flip it off,
Right.
and it works great.
Show
This thing,
us. I know before we started recording, you also showed us your invention of the spoon because you have difficulty holding anything of these
yeah, this is a
spoons.
spoon fork knife.
Yes.
This is a spork, which is a combination spoon fork, of course.
Yep.
I don't know if you can see it, can you?
Yes, I'm sure. Yeah, I can see it, but
Okay.
yes.
You see the holes, the 3
Yep.
loops? Okay,
Yep.
now the spork end started out to be a spoon, and then it's cut. So I can use it as a spoon or a fork. And it's
Yes.
very sharp. So it's wonderful for spearing salad pieces, which are notoriously hard to pick up.
Yes.
Now, what I've done is I've put 3 loops underneath. I'll show you. It's
Yep.
better if I hold it over here, I think.
Yeah.
The 3 loops,
Yeah.
because I can't grip, I can put my hand, excuse me for a sec, put my fingers through the 3 loops. Okay, like that.
Yes.
So it's like this.
Yes.
I can't use my first finger. I cut it off when I was a kid, cutting a pumpkin, and it hasn't worked since, but at least it's there. Okay, so that lets me go in with the brace on. I mean, I'm a joy in a restaurant. People really love it. And I wear a bib too, because I splash. And I think, oh, that poor thing. But at least I get home fed and clean, you know?
Right.
That
Right.
poor thing. That, God, I don't
Wow.
know.
That is
But
so
that's
neat.
how I eat. And believe
Yep.
me, I manage to eat just fine.
Right.
And it works great. It works just great.
Well, let me take you to, so that is sort of the condition of your life, what your life has
Oh, you
been
wanted
or
me to
what had impact on your life.
you wanted me to back up. Hold on.
Oh, yeah, that's
I
right.
use this. I have 2 scooters. Can you see me?
Yes. Gotcha.
I'll turn around.
Come back, come back. Got it. Okay.
I have 2 scooters, a big one for outside, and this one is for inside. It's just a little go-go.
Yep.
And it works perfectly for inside. I
Okay.
designed the house so that all the doors are 36 inches, and they're all except 2 pocket doors. So I can just fly through them. They're left open 90% of the time,
Yep.
and there are no steps anywhere. So that the house is pretty darn good. I can get around perfectly well.
Wow.
It's great. So I'm a happy camper.
Given this background,
Yes. Yes.
I want to say when I read your book, I was, first of all, I was stunned by the degree of detail that you recall from childhood, from all of the years. And for those who are watching, when I say detail, I don't mean, yes, it was on this date. I mean, you can describe the wallpaper, you can describe who was there, what they were wearing. I'm not sure whether your recall of conversations. It amazed me that for you are 80, is that right?
I will
80
be in
Okay.
4 months, 6 months.
Okay. That you have a recall that is amazing.
Oh,
And that's one of the things that I thought she must have kept a diary her entire life, putting down everything in it. Did you do that? Did you keep a
almost.
diary all your life?
Yeah, I started when I was about 14,
I knew it
and I
had to
still
be.
do. I still do. And I remember the reason why I remembered so much from my early childhood was because my mom and dad took a lot of pictures, and we had a family that took a lot of black and white photos. They
Yeah.
just loved doing it, and so they did a lot of it. And when my mom died, I don't know, about 7 years ago, she was 96. We had a lot of photos, believe me, and I got them all because my sister died shortly after that.
Mhm.
So I went through them all for the book because I
Yes.
knew this was my history. This was me,
Yes.
my family, and me. And that's what the book is about. It's not
Mhm.
just me, it's about the whole Crabtree family.
Yes.
My
Yes.
my grandmother, grandfather, going back to England, the whole bit. So yes. And those photographs brought back a ton of memories.
Yes.
And I mean vivid memories. I could almost picture what I was wearing. I could almost smell
Yes.
where I was. The scent is a
Yes.
big thing for memory. And it was it was wonderful. It was almost devastating because everybody was gone.
Yes.
But it was wonderful to do it as well.
And
And
let me
one night,
say
in
that a
fact,
lot of the pictures are in the book, which is lovely. At the end of the chapter, you will have pictures that directly relate to
yeah,
what happened in that
yeah.
chapter.
That's why
Um,
I hope people buy the actual book. I've taken the price down to as low as Amazon will let me,
yeah,
um, because the pictures are in the book. I
right.
don't know if they're in the ebook or not. I haven't looked.
Well, what I told you early on after I read the book was that I wish you had called it something different
Yeah,
because I was afraid you had really limited your audience
yeah,
to those interested in that particular rare disease, that rare
yeah.
condition. And really, the book is much larger than that. It's much bigger than that in the portrait of the human spirit, which is your
That's nice.
spirit.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, the you have been drawn to two major things your whole life. One is writing, and the other, it seems to me, is art.
yeah.
And around those, you have built. We won't even get into yet the CMT awareness project you created. Um, but that has been a large part of your life, right? Those two
Yep,
activities. Yeah,
yep, yep.
yeah.
I started out when I was 17. 17. My first job was at a newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Well, surrounded by writers. I was in the morgue, AKA the library,
Right.
and lifting huge, big, flat pieces of plywood with the month's worth of newspapers on them and filing all the cuts and all the articles and cutting up the paper every day. It was a daily, about 45,000 circulation. Wonderful place to start off to work. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Met a lot of super people. But then I met a young photographer who took a shine to me and vice versa. And he saw the way I walked with complete foot drop. And he knew, well, one of his best friends had gone to Ridley College with him. It was a private boys' school here in St. Catharines. And by the way, I am in Ontario, Canada. We haven't
Right.
established that.
We haven't. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that young man was going through uh, McGill University to become an orthopedic surgeon. And he asked Bob Gledhill, what can be done for Linda because she's got this foot drop? And she told him what I had.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, there's a doctor down in California who's moving up to Niagara who can do a Lambernooti triple arthrodesis, which is a fusion of the ankles and feet, and it will stop the foot drop.
Oh.
Lambernooti is a doctor and triple arthrodesis is fusion. So, okay. He said, do you want to have this done? It'll take 4 operations in about 2 years. And I thought to myself, do it now. Do it now. I got a lot of life ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
I was only 19.
Mm-hmm.
So I left the Standard, the paper, and I went into hospital. And for the next 2.5 years, I was in plaster cast with my feet and ankles being fused. It was either up to my knee, then the next one would be up to my thigh, and then vice versa, back and forth, back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then the orthopedic surgeon sort of blew it. He set my heel over too far to the right on my right foot. Had to do it over again. So another 6 months. So 2.5 years. After that, I had to get out of the house. So what was I going to do? I didn't have the education to study journalism. Couldn't get into university because I was too young. And I had quit school at grade 11 because I kept falling down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to art school in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
So for 3 years, I studied art, had a wonderful time, learned a lot about myself. I was alone, of course, except my boyfriend was there most of the time, though it was an off and on relationship. But that's fine. He was still my friend, and he looked after me, so to speak, in a strange city.
Mm-hmm.
If I got in trouble, I could always call him. But I had many boyfriends and many friends. It was great. It was a terrific time and a great place to grow up. But when I came back, I'd met a young man and I married him. And I was in St. Catharines again. And I was trying to make a living as an artist. And that's almost impossible, especially if you're female, you're young, you're new, nobody knows you. And my husband decided that he was maybe going to work and maybe not, but he also drank a lot and it was tough.
Yeah. Well,
So,
let me interrupt you there for a minute, because that's one of the things that impressed me about your book was your honesty. I mean, you talked about his drinking and you talked about your drinking because you began drinking with him.
absolutely, I did.
And I really appreciated your honesty in talking about this.
Well, that's the only way to be. If my drinking was part of being a reporter or part of being the editorial department at the paper, there was a whole bunch of us that drank. And every Thursday, Friday nights, we'd go over to the local pub, which was right across the road from the back of the paper, called the Mansion House. And we'd drink beer. That's all,
Right.
just beer. But after 5 or 6, this girl got pretty tipsy. And I mean, I knew it. I don't know how many times I fell because I couldn't pick my feet up. And this was before, this was after the operations even. I was always afraid I was going to break a fusion. To break a fusion, you spend about 6 weeks without being able to put your feet on the ground or your foot on the ground. Anyway, it got to the point where my husband was drinking so much and we were having such a rough time at home that I said to him one night, I'm going home for supper. Do you want to come? And he said, no. I said, fine. And I left him there. And I don't know when he came home, but we had one hell of a fight. And that was it, pretty well. I threw him out and then I divorced him. Best thing I ever did. But I mean, the dear man, he had a real problem.
Yeah.
He's still, I don't know. I haven't seen him or heard anything of him in 40 years, but he had a real problem. So then rather than take both of us down, I had the will to survive. And I did. Yeah. And it's very strong. So fine, I was alone. I was renovating a house that my mom and I had bought together.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in, you might say, squalor, because the roof was on, but all the ceiling was off. Oh, it was awful. But I don't like spiders, and oh my God. But anyway, I had 2 little dogs. It was a time, I'm telling you, but when I look back, it was a good time.
Uh-huh.
But I wanted someone to share my life with, so I put an ad in the paper because I worked
In the
at the paper.
personals.
It
In the
was
personals
free.
that don't exist anymore.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and it was free because I worked at the
Yeah.
paper.
Huh.
And when I put it in, everybody in the paper, everybody in every department knew Crabtree's got an ad in the paper. She's looking for a man. She's looking for a man. Oh God, was I devastated. But anyway, I said, yeah, I guess I am. So the replies started coming in. The first one that I opened, sitting in the car in the parking lot of the paper, was written on yellow toilet paper. He told me what he was going to do to me, and it was signed Banana Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, yeah. And I just looked,
No.
yeah. And I just looked at the brick wall and I said, oh my God, if they're going to be all like this, this is futile. But the next one was a lovely letter with a picture of a very nice looking man. It was a really nice letter. And I got quite a few more replies. And then I decided to put the ad in again just to see if there's anything else out there. And I got a few more. I went on a few dates. One man was looking for a mother for his daughter. I can't do that, not with my disability. And yeah, my first date with him was in the boiler room of the local hospital because that's where he worked. Couldn't get off. Could you come to me? He said, okay, whatever. I got to see the boiler room anyway. And I dated another young man who was everything I loved: cars, antiques, art, everything. But it wasn't a good fit. Not for him, not for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I went back to this gentleman that had written that beautiful letter. And I phoned him and he said, meet me for a drink or whatever at the Holiday Inn. And I did. We talked for 3 hours. He said he'd call me, and he did. We started dating. We lived together for a while, and we got married after about 3 years together. And we've been married for 40 years.
Wow.
And he is fabulous. He's
Now,
fabulous.
his name is Graydon, but you call him
Ron.
Ron. Yeah.
That's his middle name.
Yeah.
He doesn't like
Gotcha.
Graydon because everybody calls him Graham and
Oh,
all kinds of different things. So he changed his Graydon to his middle name. And he's been Ron for about the last 20 years.
got it.
But you see, that
Well,
was my brother's
that's
name.
one thing I told you before we went live here that I had a friend who was a quadriplegic, and she was friends for many years, and she had a very active social life. And it was always stunned people who seemed to think that if you have a severe or limiting, physically limiting disability, that you don't have sex, you don't get married, you don't do any of those things. She was actually named as the co-respondent in a divorce case.
Good for her. Good.
Yeah, I thought, wow. And the only problem, just have to tell you this because it's such a wonderful story. There was a trial of this, and during it, the betrayed wife said she had a witness, and the witness came in and took the stand, and it turned out the witness was blind. And the judge just was at a loss as to what to do with this case. It was wonderful. But back to the point, which was people have, I think, a perception that if you have a disability such as this, you don't have any personal or physical relationships. Absolutely not true in your case, or in my friend Lee's case.
Many, many cases.
Yeah.
I actually started a magazine called It's Okay on sex and disability.
Really?
And yep, I didn't get the readership to keep it going, but
Yeah.
that was maybe 20 years ago. And believe me, people with disabilities came out of the woodwork. And
Yeah.
it wasn't too hard to find people,
It's
believe
2
me,
o'clock.
that had a full sex life who, it's just based on ignorance, that's all.
Yes.
If you think that a person with a disability isn't going to have a sex life, then you're never going to approach them
Correct.
with that thought in mind,
Right.
that they're a sexual human being just like everybody else.
Yes.
Yes. So some people have difficulties developing a sex life, you might say, because maybe they live at home with mother, or they live in a group home where there isn't any access to have any kind of a sex life.
Yeah.
But if you can and you're inclined, why not?
Right.
And it's just mostly ignorance on the part of the people who don't know.
The other thing, two things she kept running into, and one of them you said you had too, which is it was clear to her that there were people who, upon meeting her, suspected her mental abilities. I mean, she said they used to talk like over her, about her.
Yes, right in front of her.
Was with her. Yeah.
Yes. That happened to me just last week.
Seriously.
She could get this, the woman in the store said. I said, oh, no, she couldn't. I don't like that. I just said, no, thank you. I don't. I just talk right at them. But it's just ignorance again. They've not used to being with people who are disabled. This lady was obviously from, she looked either Pakistani or Indian. And I don't know why, but maybe, who knows how they are with their disabled people.
Right.
But
the other is, my friend had really a lot of difficulty finding doctors who were familiar with her particular condition and willing to learn, who had to be in a learning position instead of a I'll tell you what to do position.
Yeah,
I
found one
experience.
Yeah, I found one many years ago. I don't like him all that much, but I found him, and I've stuck with him because he still has a tendency to tell me, and I frankly know more about me than he ever will.
Exactly.
And he knows CMT as being a mildly disabling disorder. Well, that was 50 years ago. We know how bad it can be. And every time I come up with something, he has to go look it up now. He has to go look for the journal articles. He has to do some homework. And he doesn't like that.
And they're not used to that.
No, he's too busy. He keeps telling me, Linda, I don't have time for this. Well, if you don't, who does?
Right.
Because I have to go through him to get to the specialists.
Yes.
Right? So it's not easy. The medical community is not geared for this kind of rare type of disease.
Right.
It's not even a disease, it's a condition.
I want to talk for a minute about what you particularly have done to both connect people around the world with this condition and involving also, if I understood it right, physicians in this sort of, you created a network. Talk to me about how you did this.
After I was at the paper the second time, after art school, I went back to the paper and I stayed there for 12 years and did a lot of writing there, a lot. Started out at obituaries, like a lot of writers do, and worked up to assistant family editor and loved it. Wrote a lot of articles, fine. But I also was involved in darkroom work with my boyfriend way back. So I knew photography and I knew writing. Okay, fine. So when I left the Standard, because I kept falling downstairs, I'd shake hands after an interview and fall down their front steps. That's no way to say goodbye, believe me. So I quit the paper. I was burned out, worn out. My disease was getting worse, condition, I should say. And I asked my mother, I was really depressed. I was suicidal, frankly. And my mom said, why don't you go back to school? So I went back to university and I started studying psychology. I was studying death and dying because that's the way I felt.
Yes.
But in the middle of that, I came across a summer where there wasn't much going on. I think I only had one night class at Brock. So I thought, what am I going to do to fill my time? I'll go nuts. And my husband said, why don't you find out more about your disease? So the library, nothing, just one little paragraph. Wrote to the Muscular Dystrophy Association of Canada, nothing. Called them, nothing. Wrote them again, nothing.
They just didn't respond?
No, nothing. Well, I found out later they didn't have anything. So it was up to me. Having been a reporter and having also handled letters to the editor for many, many years, thought I'm going to write a letter to the editor of every newspaper in Canada, which I did, and every newspaper in the United States, which I did.
Oh my goodness.
And I sent them out and I asked for people who were diagnosed with CMT to get in touch with me. Before I knew it, I had 400 letters, then 1,000 letters. It was incredible. And everybody wanted information and I didn't have any.
Yes.
So how do you do that? I can't write them back. It's too much work. I wanted to write them personally. Sending a form letter wouldn't really work. Start a newsletter. I started a newsletter, 8 pages, really, really technically, what would you say, immature. This was before computers. This was 1984.
Yeah.
I had been on a computer at the paper because I'd been editing and doing headlines and setting up pages, but I had never actually run a whole page. I'd never really run a whole publication.
Yeah.
Well, I started and my first thing was typed on a great big machine. First thing I did was I just typed columns and pasted them up. Just type, a little column wide, boom, paste them all up, paste. A few pictures here and there, drawings, fine. Send it out. Everybody loved it. I said, if you like this, send me a few bucks so I can keep going. They started sending in money. Checks kept coming, checks. They started piling up on a box beside my desk. Finally, I said to my husband, what am I going to do with all this money? I don't really need it. What am I going to do? He said, well, money? It's money? My husband had been an office manager and bookkeeper. But give me those checks, he says. So he takes them to the bank. The bank says you can't cash them because they're made out to CMT. You have to have an organization or something.
Right.
Oh, what are we going to call? That's when I named the newsletter CMT International Newsletter, CMT Newsletter. And we got a big long name and we incorporated.
Yes.
And we got ourselves an actual registered charity, Canadian registered charity. And we were going, boy, we were moving. We had all these people. And then as I started writing, started realizing that the doctors didn't know much. I answered an article in the Canadian Family Physician that said CMT was just a nuisance. Doctors shouldn't pay much attention. Just tell their people to carry on. Everything is fine. Yep. Students, really. And I wrote back, you got to be kidding. This thing has taken my life. It's changed my whole life. And I know about 400, 500 other people, same thing.
Right.
They said, you're not a doctor. We can't print your article, but you can send it in as a letter to the editor. Write us. And they gave me, I think, 2,000 words. And they said, write something about this. We want it. I thought, my God, I'm going to write something for the Canadian Family Physician. Hooray. So I did.
Wow.
Took some pictures. I wrote it. It got published. And I started to get some interest. And the newsletter took off. We did the newsletter for 18 years. We started with 8 pages. We ended up with 32 pages. 4 times a year. We started 6 times a year, 4 times a year. 32 pages. We had between 3,000 and 4,000 members, off and on, all over the world. I had helped start CMT organizations in I don't know how many countries. But what I did was, like, I went to England a couple of times to get them going. That was wonderful. Went down in the States many times to start chapters. Went across Canada several times
You're
to start
amazing,
chapters
Linda.
in every province. That was wonderful. People were terrific. Um, I we started to really get burned out around 2002 was when we quit. We just My husband was totally burned out. He was 60 and he was 65, I guess, and I was 60. And he said, I want to quit. I want to quit. That's all there is to it. And I thought, I don't want to do it without him because he knows everything. He handled everything, not only the books, but all the mailings, everything.
Yeah.
We had ladies come in. We had 6 ladies who came in every time we did a mailing. They did the whole thing in one day, sent out everything. All the newsletters went in great big
Right.
and big envelopes with all the addresses.
Right.
He put everything through the mailing machine. It worked. We were like clockwork, the two of us, but he'd had it. So I retired. But after that, I put everything that was important up on a CMT International website so that people could still go in and find everything they
Yes.
needed. And an organization started up in the States. They had already been there, but they'd never had a newsletter, the CMTA. And then the Hereditary Neuropathy Foundation started. And now there are 2 or 3 more in the States. And I run CMT Canada Facebook page, working with Muscular Dystrophy Canada. We just had our walk for CMT and raised $100,000 on Saturday. So that kind of thing, I'm still doing it. I've been doing it since 1984. I don't know how many years that is, but it's quite a while. And I want to continue to do it till the day I drop dead because it keeps me connected.
Yes. Yes.
Keeps me with people.
Yes.
I love it.
Well, I just want to say you're absolutely amazing. What you have done, what you have accomplished, and it isn't even forget the disability. What you have accomplished is amazing in your life, and helping so many people with the disability, just getting it known in the world. You did it in your little living room, and it's really pretty amazing. And
That's
for those who
right.
are fascinated with this, it's all in the book. It's all in the book. You got to read the book. I know you wanted to talk for a minute about family, about the importance of family in your life, and talk to us about what you mean by that.
Well, my family's all gone now, and it's tough. I miss them very much. It's hard for me to talk about, so I'll keep it short. But I lost my father when I was quite young. He was only 58, I think, or 9. Heart. Then I lost my brother. He had a stroke and then he died of cancer. And he and I weren't that close, but we were starting to get closer. Every time he lost a wife through divorce, we became close. And then the wife stepped in again, and you know what I mean. So then my sister and I have always been close. She's 12 years younger. She was 12 years younger, and it was wonderful. We had a really lovely relationship. She had 2 beautiful girls. She died suddenly at 59, about 6 years ago. And so my mom died just before my sister. Mom was 96, but she coped with dementia for many years. And I watched her go through that. And that was really, really tough. At the end, she was afraid of the woman in the mirror and things in the wallpaper. And oh God, it was terrible. That's another thing that frightens the hell out of me. My type of CMT can come with brain atrophy. And that's scary. And that's part of the reason why I keep so busy, because if you can keep your brain active, it's going to keep firing. And if I let it go and I start thinking, oh, I'm going to, no way.
Listen, both my mother and my grandmother died of Alzheimer's.
Okay.
So both my mother and her mother. So of course it is an absolute ever-present factor. Yeah. And it's why I keep my brain as absolutely busy as it can be.
Absolutely.
in order to not have that fate, which I may have anyway, who
Yep.
knows? But I
Yep.
do everything I can do, including you had a little episode, a big episode with marijuana and your pain management at one point. I now take marijuana gummies at night because there's some research that says that it may stave off Alzheimer's. So
Yep.
I'll do whatever's out there to not have that
Yeah,
particular
me
fate.
too.
I'm with you on that. Yep.
Yep. Yep. I use marijuana for pain. I
Yep.
use a Pax vaporizer. It's just a little puff of nothing. And
Mm-hmm.
no, it's not smoke. And it helps. And I also use it sometimes at night. And I also
Mm-hmm.
have gummies if I want to. My
Yeah.
friend gave them to me, and I don't know how well they work. I haven't tried them at night. I will.
Mm-hmm.
And because I have chronic neuropathic pain and it's
Mm-hmm.
burning. And from the hips down to my toes pretty well. It just burns all the time.
Wow.
So I sit on cold packs rather than take mind numbing drugs, which they
Yes.
all are. I sit on cold
Yes.
packs. And my husband thinks I'm nuts, but he gives them to me anyway. You need a cold pack? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Speaking of husbands, couldn't be
Yes.
luckier. He's fantastic. He's 84. He keeps me together. He keeps the house together. He
Oh
looks after
my.
everything, gets the groceries, does the cooking. He's fantastic.
Wow.
And I'm so lucky. When that
Yeah.
letter came in, I didn't realize that I was holding my future in my hands.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
fabulous, just fabulous.
Wow. Wow. Happen to know, you can't believe how fast the time is going. I happen to know that you now gone back to doing, not gone back to, I think you've always been doing it, but art.
Yeah.
And I know you sent me a beautiful card that with a drawing on it by you. Can you show us a few of what you're doing now?
Yeah, sure I can. What I'm doing is I've gone from doing great big canvases. You can see one over my shoulder. And
Yeah.
I've got quite a few around. I sold one to a lady in Detroit, and she loves it. What I'm doing is just small things because they don't take that much work. Maybe a couple of weeks off and on. And I turn them into cards and I send them to my friends on their birthdays. But I'm just doing ink and watercolor because it's easy and I'm just doing natural things. This is one of, I don't know if
Oh,
you
that's
can,
beautiful.
but it's just Song of Sumac.
Yeah.
And it's just color and beautiful sumac because I have a large garden and I love my garden and I have a lady who gardens for me.
Uh-huh.
And I buy the stuff and she puts it in and we both enjoy it. This
Wow.
one is I think it's called Desert Dune, but it's a geranium that I particularly like with pretty terrific leaves.
Oh, wow. Yes.
It's got the most gorgeous leaves.
Gorgeous.
The flowers aren't much to speak of, but boy, the leaves are fabulous.
How do you do this with your hands? How do you hold the brush? How do you do it?
I can actually hold a brush, very light brush, and I can hold a pen. I'm very lucky. This works enough
Uh-huh.
to do that. This is a picture of I don't know if you can see it, but I did a larger one of this, and it took me almost all winter. But it's something that I worked on. You see that?
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah. Oh,
It's a big
beautiful.
butterfly and a lot of weeds.
Yes.
But I have those weeds right here in my studio, and I just use them for a lot of background stuff.
Yeah.
And this kind of thing keeps me going. It keeps me happy when I love it. I put on my music, which is everything from, oh God, Willie Nelson, which my husband says, you like Western? No, not really, but
No,
I
I
like
like
Willie
Willie.
Nelson,
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, to Mel Torme, to, all kinds of wonderful things. I can't remember half of them now, but I just have the people that I like. This is one I did of a geranium earlier.
Oh, beautiful.
And these cards just, I think I'm up to almost 50 different paintings now. And I just send them out to friends. It's fun.
Well, do you sell them if someone wants to buy one or more?
I could, I guess. The thing is, I'd have to, yeah, I'd
Well,
have
let me
to.
do this before we go on to how to get your book. Would you mind giving your email address? And if someone is interested and that they'd love to have one of yours, they could write to you?
Absolutely. It's just Linda at lindacrabtree.com.
That's simple, Linda at lindacrabtree.com.
Yep. It's fine.
Very
It's
simple.
easy. Yep.
So anybody out there who may be interested in having some original Crabtree beautiful cards, write to Linda.
Yeah,
So talk to me about the book. The book, what year did your book come out?
17.
Okay.
2017.
Okay. And
So
it's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon, CMT and Me, and 2.5 years to write. I started it, like I told you, going through the photographs. Then I went through all my journals that I have. Every one of them, I read every one of them. I took notes on every one of them, of the important things. Thing is, I could remember, because when I wrote in my journals, I wrote so descriptively that it brought it all back.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I could see it, like I could see it in my mind. And then I said, okay, I got to divide all this into chapters. I did that. Turned out to be a lot. It was 75 years of life, from 16 months to year 75.
Yeah.
A lot of life in there. Is anybody ever going to be interested in this? I read a lot of reviews. We get the Toronto Star, and I read the book pages and literary pages.
Yeah.
I read one review, and it said, it was a book by a man who said, he was being reviewed, and the reviewer said, "You are so honest in this, it's almost embarrassing." And he replied, "If you're not honest about your life, then why bother? It's might as well be fiction." And I thought, that's exactly the way I feel. If you can't be honest, don't do it. Don't say it. Don't write it. And I guess I'm brutally honest. But in a way, I hope it doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah, and it's not brutally honest. It's just honest. And for those of us who write memoir, which has now become a respectable thing to write,
right?
For those of us who write memoir, I think the most difficult thing, at least for us type A controllers, is to be vulnerable, to tell the truth about yourself, to reveal. That's the most difficult part of all for me. For me, it is.
Oh, me too.
And luckily, I have a friend who is editing with me, editing the book, and she reminds me constantly, Jean, if you're not being honest about who you are, how you got here, what happened along the way, what part you played in it, what is the point?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still coming to grips with that after 4 years even, because you bared your soul, you bared the very basics of you. And it's hard. It wasn't hard to write, but it's hard to read. It's hard to know that people know that out there, strangers, God knows who they are. And they know the barest part of you, what makes you tick. And even now I kind of cringe thinking, geez, I said that. And,
But I'll bet there are also parts, even with my 2/3 done book, there are parts that I can't reread without crying.
Yeah, me too.
I can't. Chapter about my mother's dementia, I cannot get through it.
I know.
Just reading it to myself.
And my sister's death. Yes. I read that, I'm devastated all over again.
Yes.
But I had a wonderful lady in California, a good friend, who has CMT, and we worked together a lot. And I asked, first the lady in Toronto, I asked her if she would please go over with me, look for anything embarrassing, really embarrassing, look for any typos, look for punctuation, look for anything that's really bad.
Yeah.
She did. But we got to the point where it was getting that she was missing things. I was missing things. And she said, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I thanked her for what she'd done because it was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to my friend in California and I said, would you look at this with me, please?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's getting to the point where it's going to be a book, where it's
Mm-hmm.
becoming something, really something. She said she would. She's probably sorry she took it on, but she did. Couldn't have had a better person, I'm telling you. Truth, just really honest. We didn't change very much at all. She was a super proofer.
Yeah.
Right down to the last comma and punctuation. Perfect. I tend to skip a lot. She doesn't.
Uh-huh.
But she doesn't go nuts either.
Yeah.
We queried a lot of things. We looked into all the style books. We did everything we had to do.
Yeah.
And I still cringe when I see a typo. But I read a lot and I see typos in everybody's books.
Yes.
So, so what? So,
Well, listen, our time has flown. Tell people how they can tell people the name of your book and where they can get it.
just look for CMT and Me. I'm not going to give you the subtitle.
Yeah.
It's too long. CMT and Me by Linda Crabtree. It's on Amazon. It's on Kindle and Kobo. I suggest you get the real book because the pictures, I think, really help make the book.
Yes.
They really do. And I thank
Wonderful.
you, Jean, for this. It's
yes.
good. Thank you
It's
very
been
much.
I knew it would be enjoyable, and indeed, it has
Well, I hope
been.
your people watching it find it interesting at least.
So do I. So do I.
Yeah.
We need those Google numbers.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Linda. Take care.
Take care. You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, I ended.
No, it's still recording.
Mm-hmm.